If you own a computer, here's how to get the most out of it without buying lots of expensive software. Get ready to write down a phone number and watch this. CompuServe combines the power of your computer with the convenience of your telephone to bring you hundreds of online services, like a complete set of encyclopedias and the AP Newswire. It helps you decide on investments, bank, make airline reservations, and shop in the electronic mall. It connects you with other computer owners and offers games that pit you against opponents around the country. You get all this and more, and it's as simple as making a local phone call. To get online with CompuServe and over 500,000 people throughout North America, see your local computer store or call 1-800-522-4477 for a free informative brochure about CompuServe. Call now to get the most out of your computer.
Just thinking, I'm wondering if that phone number still works. Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. I know it's a crazy time around the holiday season, so it really means a lot for everybody who put this on, for you to be here. We are here to celebrate an important part of history in Upper Arlington, and honestly, not just for Upper Arlington, but for the state of Ohio, for the tech industry, and for millions all around the world. My name is Nick Forkamp. I'm a past president and former executive director of Leadership Upper Arlington. And before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge a few people to help make today possible. First up, I'd like to thank Gosh Enterprises for opening up their facility today for us to all be here. More specifically, Mary and Charlie Shin, owners of Gosh Enterprises. Dory North of Gosh Enterprises. Oh, we can do applause at the end. Brendan King, Mayor and President of the Upper Arlington City Council. Upper Arlington City Council members Jim Lynch, who helped make today possible, so thank you very much. Michelle Burris, John Kulowitz, and incoming member Heidi Muntz, who is actually a former employee here. I also like to thank our city manager Steve Shoney, Scott Milburn, who worked with Jim to put CompuServe on the Ohio Historicals map. Numerous representatives from the CompuServe family. And finally, Tom Schnell and Alan Sulzer of Wandel and Schnell's Architects, the firm behind the original architecture of the building. Leadership UA is proud to be the sponsoring organization behind the efforts to recognize CompuServe's historic contributions to commemorate their establishment of this headquarters right here 50 years ago. The innovative genius of CompuServe to reimagine information, access, and global connectivity cannot be overstated. So much of what we all do today started and happened right here in this building. I'm just hearing everybody talk to each other before this, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, I had to implement how to create an email for our company. I had to figure out how to connect to the internet. I remember finding my sisters on who either had a landline or connecting to AOL back in the day. And it's amazing to see in just the past 25, 30 years, I'm dating myself, going from a typewriter to having access to anything in the world in a matter of seconds. Central Ohio is undergoing a very important time of unprecedented technological growth. And however, it's incredible to say that CompuServe put Central Ohio on the map, the tech map, over 50 years ago. Now the world-altering work that they started continues with global innovation leaders like Amazon Web World Services, AWS, which put its first Midwest data center here just about a little less than a decade ago. As a result, they have helped power the Silicon Valley heartland that we know today. And they are creating an environment for others to follow, and we can see that happening in real time. It is truly amazing to see all these milestones happen in our own backyard in just in recent history. Just as Leadership UA works to engage, educate, and inspire current and emerging leaders in our community to make an impactful impact, companies that carry on the work started here by CompuServe are thriving in Central Ohio. I know we're all looking forward to see how innovation and technology advances in the coming years and for the generations to come. But for today, it's important to look back and to thank the innovators of CompuServe for how forward-thinking they all were, including the former CEO, Jeff Wilkins, who's here with us. Jeff has remained an active, supportive booster of our community to this day. Thank you, Jeff, and all your CompuServe colleagues for your imagination and courage. We remain in awe of CompuServe's work and are proud your accomplishments were made right here in Upper Arlington, a city that values leadership and commitment to creating a better future for all. I would now like to introduce Megan Wood, Executive Director and CEO of the Ohio Historical Connection, to talk about the Ohio Historical Marker Program.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate it. The Ohio Historical Marker Program began in 1953, so it's older than the internet. And it is a program we are very proud of. The Marker Program allows communities, individuals, and groups of people to identify, honor, and commemorate the important people, places, and events that have contributed to their past, to share those stories in a very visible and lasting way. And today we are adding to that timeline of significant innovation and honoring the virtual space that has deep ties in Ohio, truly the heart of it all, and the CompuServe World Headquarters Historical Marker. The mission of the Ohio History Connection is to spark discovery of Ohio's stories, embrace the present, share the past, and transform the future. And we strive to do this every day, and we really can't do it alone. Historical markers and the people that create, support, and enjoy them contribute to that mission. There are now over 1,750 Ohio historical markers around the state, each telling a unique piece of Ohio's history. And this marker, honoring the CompuServe World Headquarters, now joins other state markers telling the story of Ohio. You're to be commended in taking the initiative to identify this important aspect of our community. And I haven't done this research, but this may be the first historical marker anywhere that is talking about this part of history, and certainly this part of Ohio history. And I was talking to my kids, I have a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old last night, about this marker and sort of the history of communication, the internet, and what Ohio played in it. And they were just asking me so many questions. They just could not understand, a world. I was talking about remembering my first friends who had CompuServe, and they were talking to people, and we just didn't quite understand how it worked yet. And now, if I were to talk to someone from the 1950s, I'd say, I have a box in my pocket that tells me everything in the world, and I use it to watch videos when cats become friends with chickens. So the world has changed a lot. And then after I was talking to my kids about the pre-internet world, they said, did you go to school in a horse and buggy? So, history is important to help contextualize the changes in our lives. The marker we are dedicating today was made possible through the vision, dedication, and hard work of a lot of people. I mean, not just those who built, this company, but I also want to thank Leadership Upper Arlington and the City of Upper Arlington for being sponsors and a part of this work. These organizations came together around this important Ohio story, actually global story, that we get to hold here in Ohio. They did research and submitted the marker application, put together funding to purchase and soon install the marker, and did all the unforeseen work that made today possible. Thank you. The Ohio History Connection's role really in all of this is we're not deciding what should be markers. We're working with the communities to decide, and we guide and advise them through the process and help research and refine the final marker text and follow through. And we produce these markers, we have them produced at Siwa Studios in Marietta, so it's fully an Ohio product. It was a real pleasure to partner with you on this important Ohio story. So thank you for inviting me today and to be a part of this important dedication. I am honored now to introduce our next speaker. As Ohio's 66th Lieutenant Governor, John Husted leads with a focus on economic and workforce development and has championed the administration's efforts to strengthen the economy and use technology to transform the way the government operates and build opportunity for every Ohioan. Lieutenant Governor Husted oversees the Ohio Common Sense Initiative and serves as the director of both the Ohio's Governor of Workforce Transformation and Innovate Ohio. I imagine in another 50 years, the leaders that follow us will be commemorating similar markers around innovation made possible by this administration's work. Maybe an Intel marker, who knows? Of all his responsibilities, Lieutenant Governor Husted considers his most important role of loving husband to his wife Tina and father to Alex, Katie, and Kylie. I'd like to introduce our Lieutenant Governor, John Husted.
Good morning. It is, this is really cool. I mean, it is. First of all, it took me 3 minutes to get here from my house. So I say thank you to the City of Upper Arlington and Leadership Upper Arlington for doing this, because it shows that you understand what an important role the community played and CompuServe played in creating the information digital age that we live in now. And I always say that we should celebrate the things that we value. And you can learn so much from studying history, but to learn about the innovation, the innovators, the entrepreneurship, and how that all started right here at this site and led to the creation of the World Wide Web. This is fantastic. I think about this historical marker, and I was asking myself the question, by the way, I just got to ask you all this question. How many of you, when you were going to come here today, said, oh, I really need to know more about the history of CompuServe? So you went on the internet, you may have asked ChatGPT, you may have consulted Wikipedia, you may have consulted a variety of other, I found an old Time article that Steve Case was here talking about AOL and the successor things that were going to happen. All of that was started with that 1-800 number, right? And it was so foundational to the world that we live in today, and it happened right here. And that's why I'm so excited to hear what you're going to say about it as well. But we want to celebrate this in Ohio. It's very deserving of a historical marker, and I do agree. It's like this may be like the first historical marker about the internet. Yeah. I mean, this all happened, or like most history is not recognized and celebrated in your lifetime. But this is, and it's really special. And I also know that there were so many people that came out of CompuServe who went on to do other innovative things in the sector to help create this wonderful world that we live in today. I was thinking about this because to me, what CompuServe was what the steam engine was. It was that foundational invention, commercialization of something that turned heat into work, production. CompuServe did the same thing by opening the door to using our information pipelines to send digital information. I remember some of the foundations of this because I had a housemate at the University of Dayton who was a CompuServe evangelist. And he's like, you got to get on CompuServe. I'm like, other than you, I don't know anybody else who's on CompuServe, so who will I talk to? And, but that's how it all started. And it's really exciting to have a chance to be here today. Governor DeWine also sends his well wishes and his appreciation for the work that happened right here. And as we reflect on this, today in Ohio, we have broadband that we're expanding so that everybody can participate in the modern economy, education and workforce system that started through this. We have the cloud, which has made its Midwestern home in Ohio, where we're processing AI and connecting everybody. We're making the chips here, or we're about to. We're in the process of doing that. We have today a vibrant, growing tech economy in the state of Ohio. and its foundations all started right here. So it is very appropriate that we are recognizing this with a historical marker, and it's a day of celebration. And by the way, all those packages that are on your doorsteps wouldn't be here without CompuServe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I love the aspect of getting to celebrate history within our lifetime. And not many people can say that. So I love that takeaway. I'll be holding on to that. Next up, I would like to introduce Kenny McDonald, who is President and CEO of the Columbus Partnership.
Well, happy holidays, everyone. This is really a special day. Let me just begin with gratitude around the room. First of all, Jeff, to you and your colleagues, and what this building represents and this marker represents is probably overdue. I want to thank Scott and Jim for their tireless efforts. It takes someone to say, hey, let's do this, and work behind the scenes and make this happen, and rightly so. There's far too few monuments probably to the meaning of what business means to all of our communities across our region. If you think about the great companies that are part of the Columbus Partnership, Nationwide Insurance, and Scott's, and Greif, and Cardinal Health, and Limited Brands that were all started here, something was in the air in the 80s and 90s here in our community. I like to think that we're reliving some of those days today as we're starting new companies. Mark Kwami's funded more startups than anybody in the room, and he's an evangelist for this too. But thank you for what you and your colleagues contributed to not only our community, but across our region and really around the world. Personally, incredible gratitude. What happened in this building all those decades ago has ended up shaping a 28-year career of mine. I've worked in economic development, trying to shape economies around the country, trying to bring great companies to markets, and for the last 13 years I've had the honor of doing that here. But many of those companies are enabled and are the embodiment of what maybe you dreamed here or had the vision for here, or maybe they're well beyond it at this point, but now they're here and sort of living that dream. And so personally, this is, if you think about it, it's probably touched all of our lives a lot, certainly mine. What a great way to launch into 24. I know what's on our mind is ending 23, but I would invite to maybe let's pull the energy from the today, and the spirit that you took to build this company, and think about what we're going to accomplish next year and in the years to come as we prepare for really a new era of economic growth as well. Our region is full of these brands now, Google and Amazon and AWS, Merle will talk to that in just a second, Intel, Facebook, and thousands of other companies that would not exist but for the seeds that you planted in this room and the hard work that happened here. It's an enterprise that not only connected people, but it did advance the common good. Think of all of the healthcare innovations that this has enabled. Andy's here today, and others. All the good that this has had, for all the stops and starts you've had. Overall, the net gain from this has just been incredible. I made a note to myself here to ask the question once and for all. I'd like to know if it's GIF or GIF.
Cover that.
I'd like you to cover that, John. And finally, just let's let this marker stand not only for what you did and the risks that you took and the hard work that you put in, but also a reminder of that we can indeed change the world from Columbus, Ohio. And we do that by taking risks and supporting those that take risks. And indeed, we should even take it farther and accept the responsibility to drive that and take some of the hard work that you did and build upon it and take it into the next generation. Again, congratulations to you, to all of your colleagues that assembled here today and come back to this physical embodiment of what you represent. And may everybody have happy holidays. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for asking that question. I know the majority of us deep down inside are all wondering, is it GIF or GIF? So I'm going to cover that in just a moment. But right now, I would like to introduce Merle Madrid, Manager of Public Policy with Amazon Web Services.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning and say just a few words about how the history that we're remembering today connects to the future for Columbus. And Lieutenant Governor Gustad, thank you for your leadership in Central Ohio, across all 88 counties in the state, to bring economic opportunity, prosperity to the citizens of this state. I think what we're commemorating today is what we've all known in Ohio for 50 years. This is the Silicon Heartland. Thanks to Lieutenant Governor's leadership and Governor DeWine's leadership, the rest of the world is now finally waking up to what's going on here in Central Ohio and the opportunities that exist here. About a decade ago, Amazon Web Services, my employer, recognized that, located their first data center in the Midwest, the first one that wasn't on one of the coasts right here in Central Ohio. To date, that's been over a $7 billion investment. That will at least double by the end of this decade. And that's all because of what started here, right? The thing I took away from the ad at the beginning, he said, it's as easy as making a local call. The young people don't know, the cell phone can actually make phone calls. There was a time when how you called someone in Columbus was very different than how you called someone in California or China or anywhere else, the idea of a local call. But what a moment in time when we were talking about going online to have access to software and a local call. What a juxtaposition in time, right? And we're living in that age now. We've lived through 2023, the year of generative AI, and the impacts and ramifications of that in healthcare and elsewhere are only going to grow. And how great is it for us that a lot of that technological innovation, a lot of those breakthroughs are going to happen in Ohio because of private sector leadership over the last 50 years, because of public sector leadership that understands the value of those investments, and people like Kenny who bring the private sector together here in Central Ohio, and the ripple that will have across the state. I grew up in Youngstown. I was lucky enough to get to come to Columbus and go to Ohio State. I knew something was happening here. As a young kid, I didn't know what it was. In hindsight, I should have probably learned C++. A lot of the smart kids back then did that. I was happy with C+. But here I am. But nonetheless, I can now, me, the kid who never learned how to code, could design an app in 3 minutes on Amazon Bedrock. Little plug there. Okay? So the opportunities to democratize and bring this technology that's changing lives, improving lives, to 11.5 million Ohioans and literally the rest of the globe, based on what's happening right here, running for fiber lines in Columbus, Ohio, is exciting. Jeff, thank you for your leadership in making Columbus the Silicon Heartland. Thank you, Megan, for recognizing the value in highlighting that, celebrating that, and your leadership, the Ohio History Connection. You're doing a fantastic job as a dues-paying member. I appreciate your leadership. But more than anything, Lieutenant Governor, thank you. Thank you for telling the rest of the world what we knew about Ohio. And now Intel and Google and Microsoft and Meta are all here with us, following AWS here, and we couldn't be happier to have them here. So thank you all.
That really makes me reflect when you mentioned that there are so many different people who make these types of things possible. And what we tell our classes is leadership is not just about one person. There's a lot of people who have to come together and work together to make true change happen. It is now my distinct privilege to introduce Jeff Wilkins, co-founder and CEO of CompuServe.
Thank you very much. I had a speech I'd written that my wife Julie had helped me with, and I've had to tear it up because everything I was going to say in there, some of you have already said. To start out with, I was going to thank absolutely everybody that helped make this possible, but you've all been thanked several times, so I'm going to save the time to not do that. I do want to start by saying this is not about me. I am overwhelmed to be here and see the wonderful things that you all have said about the company, and you've kind of mentioned me. I don't want to hear about me. I want the people from CompuServe who are here to stand up and get the applause that they deserve. Every single one of these people and tell stories for half an hour about all the wonderful things they did. And Paul says, no, I don't want to hear that. I will start out with a little disappointment story, which is I'm a little disappointed that this room has a microphone. I was telling Mark Kwame earlier, I built this room as a copy from a room at the Harvard Business School. I used to go there once a year to attend seminars with other CEOs, and I loved the rooms they had. They didn't need any microphones because the acoustics were so good. So I actually had the architects go to Harvard and copy the room. And some of you that have been to Harvard probably recognize it. And one of the things that we did was we had it with perfect acoustics, so you didn't need the microphones. I'd like to turn them off. You could sit in the corner over here and whisper, and somebody in the other room could hear it clear as day. So the story is that when we built the room, we came in the first day, and I wanted to go and try it out, and we were just dead quiet. If you just stop, listen. All you could hear was the humming from the ballast in the lights. There were so many ballasts it sounded like a swarm of bees. We forgot that you couldn't put the ballast in the same room, so we had to go back and move them all the other side of the wall. And they're gone now, as you can see. But anyway, the other thing I did was I asked Scott, how long would you like me to speak? I could speak 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. He said, oh, not 20, that's too long. I started thinking, so I had actually had a number of stories I was going to tell, but I'm going to cut it all back to just two. One of which answers the question that you all said. I think I'll tell that one first. I believe it was Merle was talking about somebody was talking about the bandwidth. Of course, the acoustic modems would only work at a very slow speed, and so if you wanted to put an image across a phone line to CompuServe or anything else, there had to be some sort of a compression algorithm. We had a young man by the name of Steve Wilhite who was going to Ohio State who worked on this compression algorithm and actually had great success with it. So much so that it's become an integral part of computing today. In 2013, he was invited to the Webby Awards. Webby Awards are put on by, I think it's the International Society for Digital Arts or something like that. Big convention, 1,000 people, and they had a podium and a stage. They talked all about the application for data compression, and had a statue for him. They invited him up to the stage. The CompuServe people here know Steve was in ill health. He actually had a speaking problem and could not speak. So he walked up with an iPad. You'll notice you can still hear me just fine. He walked up with an iPad and he typed on it, and it showed on the screen above, it's pronounced J-I-F. It's not GIF. And that, I hope, puts that argument to an end. But I want you to tell all your friends, anytime anybody calls it a GIF, you say, I know the real truth. Well, a lot of wonderful things happened in the building has been mentioned. One of them that's an interesting story that I thought you might like to hear has to do with the world's first electronic newspaper. When we launched the CompuServe Information Service in the late 1970s, we were very concerned about how we could get good content into the information service. And I'd always been an admirer of the Associated Press wire, and so I thought, well, we'll just get a hold of the Associated Press and hook the wire up to CompuServe. So I called them in New York and said who I was, what I'd like to do. He said, well, we can't do that. I said, well, the Associated Press is owned by newspapers. they're the other owners, and they would have to decide. You'd have to talk to them. Well, I couldn't figure out how to talk to all the newspapers. So he said, what you might do is if you could get one to do a test, maybe then that might show the potential for it. So I went down to Columbus, went downtown Columbus, and I think it was Kenny talked about the business environment in Columbus. Went to see John Wolf, John F. Wolf, who's not with us any longer. And I talked to John. I said, John, we got this idea. We need a feed from the AP wire. Would you be willing to participate? He said, sure, we'd be happy to. So that's how we got our first AP feed. We built the application for the newspaper. And then I took that and went to New York to meet with the Associated Press. And I said, this is what it looks like. Is there some way we could make a deal? And they said, well, as a matter of fact, we're having the board of directors meeting for the Associated Press in Hawaii in 2 weeks. Would you be willing to let me take this application and show them? And I said, sure. And so we'll be back to you. 2 weeks later, I get a call from Hawaii. It was Henry Heilbrunn. I don't know if any of you guys will remember that name, but Henry Heilbrunn was the point person on this whole project for the Associated Press. He said, our board would like to come to Columbus to meet with you. I said, that sounds promising. So I didn't design the lights. So I said, that's great. I said, who's coming? They said, well, Katharine Graham, Arthur Sulzberger, Bob Marbut. Some of you guys are going to know these names. It was a who's who in American journalism. They're going to come to Columbus. We're going to meet in our conference room. And Sandy Trevor and I were going to pitch them on our idea. So they came up. The funniest part was Katharine Graham's assistant called me and said, Mrs. Graham would like a car. I said, what do you mean a car? She's going to fly into Downscott Airport. She'd like a car. We didn't have limousines in Columbus. But I figured that out. We got that covered. So anyway, they're in the conference room, and Sandy and I went in and we presented the application. They'd seen it in Hawaii, of course. And they said, well, what do you want for this test? I said, we'd like 10 newspapers who will participate in the test. If each of the 10, we would like to contribute $275,000 in display advertising in their newspaper to promote the CompuServe Information Service. And they said, okay, could we talk? So Sandy and I left the room. They were in there for an hour. I thought, well, this can't be good. So go back and they said, we like the idea, we'd like to do it, but there have to be some changes. Number one, we're owned by a lot of newspapers, and so you have to make this available to any newspaper that wants to participate. And the second thing is that all 10 of us want to be part of the test. So I knew right then and there that we were on something. And so it ended up, there were 175 newspapers that participated in that test. And we got that display advertising in all of those papers, and the rest is history. It was really just the beginning. And anyway, I'm just absolutely overwhelmed by this. It's not about me. It's about the CompuServe team that made all these things happen. My one final story. See Dave Eastburn sitting there someplace. There you are, Dave. So Dave Eastburn and Sandy Trevor, once CompuServe had run its life, started a business of patent busting. What they did was they kept the CompuServe Information Service running on a mainframe. And when all these new companies in the early 2000s, when the internet was blossoming, came out with all these ideas and filed patents, and then tried to impose their patents and their royalties on other companies, they would hire Dave and Sandy to come in and testify that, well, that's a nice idea, but it was done in 1982 in Columbus, Ohio. And they would put a screen up, and they would run the application. I don't know where the host was. But anyway, and so they had a tremendous business for it. Do you still do that?
I still have one customer. That's a 1987 patent.
Oh my gosh, okay. Well, I would just stop maybe for 2 seconds and see if there's any questions. Anything anybody would like to ask? I've been doing a couple of times.
Has that story ever been documented anywhere about your AP meeting? Because it is a part of history it deserves to be told.
The only place it might be documented is at the Columbus Metropolitan Club's luncheon series. I told this story, I believe, there. So it's on video on YouTube. I think you can find it there. But no, it was a fascinating story. I mean, I just, you know, we were able to do things people just didn't imagine. It was such fun, such fun. Somebody else had their hand up. Okay, well, again, thank you all from the bottom of all of our CompuServe hearts. We're looking forward to doing this. I think I'm supposed to invite my grandchildren up. If you guys would come up and help me undo this, and John, if you'd help as well.
Perfect. You're making my job easy on me. You're doing it all.
My wonderful wife, Julie, and I were blessed with 3 children and 10 grandchildren. And they all turned out to be All right, so I think the way we're going to do this, if you guys would, all of you, Jake, once you come to this end, we're going to pull it off that way. Go this way. Remember, I'm going to stand in the end. Okay. You're going to pull it that way. When I say 3, I'm going to say 3, that's when you pull. Okay?
Look at the camera. Look at the camera, guys.
1, 2, 3.
All right.